How many times have you tried searching for something in Notion but couldn't find what you were looking for because you didn't know the exact phrase or the title or where it was located? This is where Notion Q&A comes in. It is the feature I've been waiting for a very long time. It's basically contextual search. It's like ChatGPT, but it's only scouring your notes. So in this video, I'm gonna put Notion Q&A to the test and challenge it across 7 different question types and see if it's worth the hype. Let's find out. So if you want access to Notion Q&A, you do need to sign up in their waitlist, and I'll put this link in the description box below. But if you do have Notion AI, which is their $10 a month feature, you should have this feature already. And when you do get access to Notion Q&A, you can access it in 2 different ways. You can access it down here where it says Ask AI, click on here, and then you have a chat box where you can type in your searches. But I found the better way is to use Command P like you typically would for a universal search. You will see that there's a little action here called Ask AI in Irfan, and Irfan is my workspace, but I can click here and I can get a nice big box here and start typing my question. But even before doing that, what you could do is just do a regular universal search. So look for notes on apples, and then you can just click here and start your Notion Q&A search. My first challenge is going to be to basically give Notion Q&A kind of a gist of an idea, a thought that I know I have in my notes, but I don't know exactly the title or the phrase. And this is going to be a journal entry about running 11 miles, and I don't know where it's located, but I know it's in my notes. So I'll go here, I'll say find a note about running 11 miles and feeling pretty proud of myself. So it's thinking. This is actually pretty quick when it does these searches. It only takes a few seconds. Obviously it's not as fast as a universal search, but it's still pretty good. So here it's basically finding the note and then basically doing a quick write-up of what the note said. And you can see there are citations here, and these citations, if you click on them or hover next to them, they show you a preview of the note, which is really nice. You can get to the actual source. So I like the way Notion implements this with citations on where it's pulling the information from. So you can see here, it basically summarizes that I woke up at 6 a.m. and ran 11 miles on the Lakeshore Path by 7:15. This is exactly what I was looking for. And it cites an article I wrote actually, which I forgot about, which is Life Lessons from 2022. And then I have another note here, but I think it's actually, this is the second time I've done this search. Actually, week 40 is where that note is originally derived from. So pretty good so far. Now let's look for something that we maybe clipped from the internet, and I have an idea of what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a quote from William James, his famous psychologist, on simplicity. So I don't know what the quote is, but I know it's from William James, so it's a name here, and I know it's something about simplicity. So let's see if we can find this note, or where it's from, or where I wrote it. So this is where the Q&A feature is still kind of half-baked or still in beta. Is I've asked this question before and it's given me the right response, but this time it's giving me I can't find that quote. So let's ask it one more time. Find any mentions of William James. And I know I just have one place where William James is located, so hopefully it'll find it the second time. This is actually the note I was looking for, and it's, again, the original is from a blog post that I clipped into my database, and then there was a Steve Jobs pruning exercise drafted an article I wrote myself that I also used that same quote. So I found it, and it gives me the citation, which is this original one here. And the cool thing is you can hit the command or control button and click on the citation, and it should open it up, that note, in a new tab. So I have it here, and I can find William James, and you can see this is the article. The art of being wise is the art of knowing what to overlook. All right, so next up is my own thoughts on topics that I want to see if Notion Q&A can figure out. What are my thoughts on time blocking, right? So I'll do that. I'll click on here, and let's see if it knows what my thoughts on time blocking are versus other people in my notes. So it's looking through my notes, everything. Okay, so it says, you've written an article on why time blocking might not work for everyone, particularly those with task-based orientation who find it challenging to stick to a rigid schedule. It did a pretty good job. It summarized my actual article, but now let me see, what are Cal Newport's thoughts on time blocking, right? So let me see if it knows the difference. Okay, so it says Cal Newport is known to advocate for time blocking, which is a productivity technique where tasks are assigned to specific blocks. This is seen as an effective way to structure work, especially for those who are clock-oriented and can move seamlessly from one task to another. So this is actually pulling from the article where I cited Cal Newport, so it knows the context of what I wrote versus Cal Newport and how I quoted him. So this is just really, really smart to be able to understand my thoughts versus someone else in my workspace. And you can do this for a bunch of things, journaling, especially if you've written things or thoughts or opinions. You can basically ask Notion Q&A what you think about them, and it basically tells you, which I think is awesome. So next up is going to be asking questions on people, places, and things. So I'm going to ask it about my trip to London, and let's see if it can find those. Find notes on London. Okay, so this one should be easy. I have a big note for London, and let's see if it can find that. Okay, so it's saying restaurants, which is getting at a specific node. It's getting to a future trip that I'm looking at, and I'll get to that in a second. It has the actual London-Paris trip that I took in September, and then it's citing even journal articles that I wrote about London. Let's go a little bit more advanced. Find the restaurants that I visited in London. Can it do that? Can it actually look in through my different notes in my journal to see if it knows the restaurants I went to or I mentioned that I went to in London? This one's going to be a little bit more difficult, but let's see. And I did go to Seven Dials Market. I went to Dishoom, Gymkhana. So really, really cool. It can think about a place you went to, and then also you can give it a more advanced search and look for restaurants. I've also done people in my life. So I did my brother, my nephew. It knows who those people are. It knew who my ex was. And the really strange or profound thing is when you write these people and say, what are my thoughts on my ex? Or what are my thoughts on my brother? It basically reinterprets your own thoughts and lets you know from its perspective, which is a little bit weird in the fact that it's like someone reading your journal and then telling you what you said, but in a different way. You could obviously do something simple like person. I did William James, but I can do notes on, find notes where James Clear was the podcast guest. So I know I have a couple of different notes on James Clear and him being on a few different podcasts, but I don't know who the podcast host was. So let me see if I can find it and maybe even tell me some context around what I wrote in terms of notes on those podcasts. So boom, it tells me James Clear was a guest on the Adam Grant podcast and the Dario Rose show. Perfect. Those are the two notes I remember having. The next question type I'm going to ask it is time. So I'm going to ask it about what notes I took last week and see if Notion has some context around the ability to understand what last week was or 1 year ago. So what are some notes I took last week? So this should be new notes I created, notes I updated, and see if it can get this right. So it's thinking. Okay, so this is really, really cool where it's saying that you made notes on Notion Q&A feature, which is the video I'm filming right now, where you organize ideas and create a script for YouTube video and knows the context at which database that was pulled from. You also updated your 2024 annual plan and vision, which I did, specifically your daily routines, relationship goals, and work plans. Finally, you made progress on your 4 techniques to hit all goals this year. So it's a piece I'm writing for my newsletter. So did a pretty good job of knowing where I was last week and what notes I was updating or I was creating. So, and then again, it tells me the 3 pages and I can go to them. So Notion does a really good job of understanding time. And I've done this before where I've done like, what are my top 5 highlights from 2023? And it pulled it from the journal I have for the last 2.5 years and knows, okay, these entries from 2023, find the top highlights and kind of tell me the things I did, which I think is awesome. So if you do journal in Notion, I think using that kind of the time searching is really interesting and unique. Next up is I'm going to ask it around record keeping. So facts and figures I have in my database, and can it just like tell me the answer? I'm going to ask it, what is my PR for the half marathon? This one should be easy. I have like a note on this. So just tell me what my PR is. I don't want to even see, I don't even want to go into the note. I know it's in there, just tell me what it is. My PR for the half marathon is 1 hour and 48 minutes, and I achieved it at Portland, which is awesome. So I'll say, and how about my 10K? Again, should be fairly easy, and yeah, 51 minutes, 15 seconds, that's correct. Another quick way to just get some facts or figures, if you need to know your TSA number, you can just type that in and it'll tell you what your TSA number is. So anything that you need like quick figures or facts, Notion Q&A does a really good job. Next up is image search. Can it look for an image I have in my Notion database and find it? So it's basically going to be able to read an image. So I have a screenshot, I know, of my flight to Amsterdam and London later this year. So let me see if it can find that. And I don't have any text around it. I just have the image in a note. Find my flight to Amsterdam. And let's see if it can find that note. So here is kind of one of the limitations of Notion Q&A. I'm sorry, but I couldn't find any information about your flight to Amsterdam, but I know if I do a regular search in Notion and I do Amsterdam, I can find, you can see here, I have that image here and it has that London and Amsterdam trip. You know, in another way, Notion Q&A didn't understand that, hey, he does actually have a note, London and Amsterdam, but it doesn't know when I'm taking that trip, so it could think that it was from previous time. Notion Q&A does not do a good job of finding images in your library and being able to scour them and retrieve them for you. The final search, which I think is really unfortunate, is it can't filter out to a certain database. So if I say find notes on James Clear again, and I ask Q&A, you'll see I have a lot of notes where I mention James Clear, and there are certain notes that are coming from my PKM, my personal knowledge management dashboard, and those are basically things I've clipped from the internet, but it doesn't know the difference between those notes versus the ones that are from my YouTube script library. So I wish it could distinguish between that, and I've asked before, like, only look for James Clear in my PKM dashboard database. It doesn't know that. And obviously this is where a regular search would be superior, because you can go into the filtered function here and find that dashboard. It's actually like PKM, and I can type in James Clear, and it'll only look for James Clear and his name in the context of that database. So my overall thoughts on Notion Q&A is that it has a ton of potential. It's exactly what I was hoping for, especially with being able to just ask it a question where I don't know exactly what I'm looking for, and it's finding it pretty well. I think the biggest reason why it's still in beta is the reliability. Sometimes it just kind of whiffs on basic searches, and it doesn't have those advanced features that I thought it would, like being able to just filter to a certain area of my workspace. Right now, it has to search for everything. Hopefully that'll change in the future. I would like to see it be able to understand images in my database, because I do have a lot of screenshots and images that I've taken, and it should be able to look at those and retrieve those back to me. Let me know your thoughts below, and if there's anything I missed in terms of the questions I asked Notion Q&A, and I can answer them in the comments. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you guys in the next one.